Welcome to the Business Extra podcast at The National in Abu Dhabi. I'm Mustafa Alrawi, Assistant Editor-in-Chief. With me is my co-host, Kelsey Warner. Hi, Kelsey.
Hey, Mustafa.
So we're talking today to you about the new expanded visa system in the UAE that was announced last night. And so we're very much within the first 24 hours of this particular news cycle. But there are a lot of details that show how, I think, three aspects that struck out for me with some of the new details. Family, in terms of who you can sponsor. Job seekers, so opportunity for those looking for jobs here in the country who aren't necessarily here. And then a deepening of the talent pool for the expanded criteria for who can take on long-term residency here.
Absolutely. So there are still many unknowns. It's a new piece of news, as you mentioned. I think those three themes are right on, but the three words too are golden, green, and visitors. And those are the three things we'll unpack over the next few minutes and try to explain what's to come, what residents and would-be aspiring residents can take advantage of here to build a life here. But the other thing too is we think about the UAE economy, and we talk about all the time the energy transition, and what we're seeing here today is really evidence of the transition taking shape for the knowledge-based economy that's being built here as we prepare for the last barrel of oil.
Making the economy more competitive, creating a labor market that is more dynamic and there's more flexibility. And as you said, a real recognition that not only are jobs changing in the next few years as technology and various trends take hold, but also that requirements for every economy is going to be very, very different. So what we had before, and you think of the UAE as a 50-year-old country and what it needed in the first few decades of its development and what it will need now over the next few decades coming.
Right, what's happening for the next 50, and this has massive implications for just how expats live here. How do you actually see your life here? Do you paint the walls? Do you hang pictures? Do you buy a car? Right down to uplift in real estate and uplift in major important sectors for the UAE, like hospitality, like healthcare. If you've got longer-term residents, there's longer-term benefits.
So we're joined by Haider Hussain, who's a partner at Fragomen, immigration specialists. Before we listen to that interview, please do hit that subscribe bell. Thanks for being with us today to talk about the news with regards to the visa system. And you've very much been looking at this over the last couple of years as we've seen an expansion of the different criteria and options available to those working and coming to live in the country. Hi, Haider.
Hi, thank you for having me on board. You're right. I think there's been significant news overnight, and I'm happy to talk and get into more details about and decipher some of these changes that have been positive changes that have been brought in the UAE.
So if we run through it, Kelsey mentioned a little bit earlier that there was changes to the golden visa system. An expansion on that. There was also an update on the green visa system, which you can explain exactly what that means for us, and also for the visits in terms of those outside the country. So those are kind of the three main areas of the news.
Absolutely. So if you look at the golden visa, so golden visa is a 10-year visa, and what it allows individuals to do is obviously consider their future within the UAE, and that's what the purpose of the golden visa was. It's a 10-year visa which can be renewed. So in essence, you can plan to stay in the UAE for a very long time. Now, earlier on, one of the major changes that when I was going through it, apart from the fact that obviously it's for there have been changes for investors, there's for exceptional talent, and also graduates, etc. But one of the main one that would possibly attract a lot more applications and interest, and I know that is rife in the market, was previously for professionals, which are current individuals who are in employment in the UAE. There was a threshold of a salary requirement that you needed to have a 50,000 monthly salary dirhams to be eligible to apply for a golden visa. So this new update has expanded that and actually reduced it to 30,000 for professionals. This would definitely have a lot more interest from a lot of the individuals or in the UAE who are currently working across a lot of multinationals or other organizations to try and secure themselves a golden visa, and so that they can also have security in terms of a 10-year residency for them and their dependents as well. And again, coming to dependents, a really important change on that front is golden visa holders. There's always been this issue for dependent sons, where a dependent son, if he's 18 or more, we would struggle to get a residence permit for them. There'll be exceptional circumstances. You'll have to provide a lot of other documentation to satisfy the authorities, and they'll get it in a 1-year sort of increment. Now, with golden visa holders can apply their dependent sons who are up to the age of 25, from a golden visa or residence permit for them as well, so they can sponsor them to remain in the UAE. Apart from, there's no change in the daughters, and unmarried daughters were always getting residency, so that's not an issue. But this is also an important change. When you come to the green visa or the green residence, this was announced last year. But the details of it, a few details of it have been announced in this particular update. Again, for talent in the UAE, people who are in employment, who have salaries of 15,000 or more, on monthly salary of 50,000 dirhams or more, can get a 5-year residency visa, which is the green residence. Again, a really important aspect to trying to ensure that people are not considering UAE for the short term. And the other one that you mentioned about the visitor visa, they have announced a multiple entry visit visa, which was announced previously. The rollout is in progress. Individuals can get a 5-year multiple entry visa to come into the country and stay here for a period of 90 days over a 180-day period. One of the main criteria, though, for that is for the application or the eligibility criteria that people will need to meet is that they should be able to evidence a minimum balance of $4,000 or equivalent in foreign currency by way of a bank statement for the past 6 months. So, if they've maintained their balance to that amount for the past 6 months, then multiple entry tourist visa is another important step for more from a tourist standpoint. So these are key ones to sort of look at. There's also obviously the job seeker one as well, which is a really important step for the UAE.
I want to dig in a bit more to the golden visa and who this is really targeting. We have listed exceptional talents, real estate investors, and entrepreneurs. And when you think about exceptional talents, dig into the specifics of that a bit more. It's people who work in arts, culture, digital technology, inventors, innovators. For real estate investors, it's those who have bought property for at least $540,000. And then for entrepreneurs, it's those who have founded small to medium-sized enterprises with revenue over $1 million, or who have recently exited a business. Can you just, is this new? Was this a surprise? Is this a change overnight, or were the seeds planted for this previously?
It's been there. It's always been there. I think the thresholds have been reduced over time. But for exceptional talent, the route was there. So golden visa, in its original form, when it was announced, it was always for different categories. So even now, if you look at people who are getting golden visa or have been getting golden visas for the past couple of years, they have to be qualified in a particular category, whether it's an entrepreneur category, whether it's exceptional talent, whether it's a creative. They go through different ministries or authorities for that validation or approval. For example, if it's, you must have seen a lot of celebrities get it, so that goes through the media authorities, etc., or the sports council votes on it, etc., for any sportsmen. So it's always been there. It's just that they've been making it more, either expanding it by reducing the thresholds as much as they can, making it more available for individuals to apply and accessible, because it still has been, like I said, if you look at the professionals category, 50,000 dirhams per month. Or if you look at the high net worth, the investment requirement was much higher previously. Those were all limiting factors for people to apply for golden visas, because they look at the eligibility and will shy away or would not qualify. It's all of these are changes where it makes and allows more people to apply and be eligible for the category. Now, it's an eligibility requirement. I just want to make that clear as well, as it obviously goes through its review and approval process, but it makes the pool a lot bigger for the talent or the category of people they're trying to attract. There'll be more applications and they can then choose, the UAE authorities can then choose who's the best sort of applicant and then start issuing the visas.
So if I jump in here and talk about the different perspectives. So we have an update of this system, more detail, a greater understanding of who might be included. So you're either somebody outside of the country, maybe looking for a new base to relocate, either as an investor, a skilled person, a business owner. And now there's a lot more criteria, not just for yourself and your family. And I mentioned family earlier because now, for example, a golden visa holder, you can bring in any direct relative to live with you now. So that becomes an important factor for deciding whether this is the kind of place for you. Then if you're already here and you're working in the country, but you're working on a standard 3-year residency visa that renews, you have an option now for something longer, 5 or 10 years, not just for you, but your family as well. And then you have a third category of person that will not necessarily looking at moving here or is already here at that level of maturity, but maybe the new person, new job seeker, somebody about to graduate somewhere, anywhere in the world, and is looking for opportunities and has a chance to come here and assess what the job market is like without having to take a job before, which is typically what happened. You either came here for a month and you tried your luck unofficially and you left, or you got a job and you got your permit, or unofficially in practice recently you've been able to come in for 6 months, but now there is something more defined. It kind of creates a whole new category of people, which leads me to kind of the final perspective, not necessarily the final, but one that is sort of broader, which is, if I am an employer, I look at the costs associated with hiring and with people who leave. And if I'm consistently having to look outside of the country to bring the talent in, and it takes time and it takes money, if all of these details and changes to the visa system results in a deeper and more skilled talent pool, then if I'm running a huge business in particular, then suddenly it becomes more cost effective, more efficient, and more attractive to be based here as opposed to anywhere else in the region or even the world for that matter. So I think it all boils down to, in a very long-winded way.
It was a long walk, but it's been worth it.
I thought it was scenic.
Yeah.
So it took us around the houses, but it comes down to this idea of competitiveness. Can this be the most competitive environment in which to live and work? And Haider, I'll ask you to put your kind of lawyer hat on and say, is that something that you would, when people approach you about these new systems, is that something that would be top of mind when you're talking to them about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And if I add to what you were saying as well, is look, if you look at, obviously we're supporting a lot of our clients with their recruitment within the country in terms of getting them all coming together on the appropriate paperwork, etc. So we're seeing a lot of hiring that's taking place already. So there is, in terms of the growth, the bounce back that UAE has done from COVID, the impact of the expo, the oil prices where they are. So there's definitely during the COVID period, over a period, I think there was a lot of downsizing in a lot of the companies, and then there was hiring freezes. So there's a lot of pent up demand at the moment, and there is a bit of a lack of talent for the right roles as well. So this is, again, if you look at the job seekers visa, people coming on tourist visa, etc., that's rife in the market. creates a pathway for people. And again, if you look at the job, if you decipher the job seekers visa that they've announced, is what they're trying to attract is those individuals who are graduates. So the one of the requirement is that you should have a bachelor's degree, and for fresh graduates, it should be from 500 of the best universities in the world. Now, and Ministry of Labor has different category systems of levels, and it should qualify within that. So what the if you look at the thought process there, it's very clear. We want talent to come in to take UAE and progress UAE further. So that's definitely there. And I'd also want to just point out is the progress and that's taking place in terms of in the infrastructure development that's taking place in the UAE and across the region as well. The impact of Saudi is there as well. The world events. So there's a lot of influx that's available to sort of for people to sort of come in, and there needs to be proper pathways which these particular changes make it happen for people to come in.
And so we're talking about pathways, thinking about pathways. This is a country that really has no path to citizenship, and a path to residency has always been directly through your employer's office. So now we're starting to see a further diversification of pathways for freelancers, for investors, for entrepreneurs. But can you talk a little bit more about this evolution away from tying visas to employment? Are visas ultimately still tied to employment, or is this genuinely changing?
So, within the region, there's always been this concept of sponsorship, right? And tying it and ensuring that, you have a tight control on the people that are coming in, and you have somebody that you can hold accountable to if something happens from a foreign national coming in. So, and if you look at it, apart from the UAE, it's still the same situation. So UAE is kind of leading the way. I've got a lot of messages from our firm globally and all of where they've said the same. With the news that they've heard on these changes, and it's very progressive, and saying that UAE is leading the way within the region. So, in terms of the sponsorship, look, the employment residence permits, the tourist visas, the standard, they're still there at the moment, and I think they'll be there. But what it is creating is this parallel, categories where eligible people can actually apply and get their own sort of visa. A lot of people have got golden visas. People are getting multiple entry tourist visas for 5 years. And those are all self-sponsored. Those are not tied to the employment. So if tomorrow a golden visa holder, has an employment issue or a dispute, and it doesn't work out, they're actually not linked from an employment standpoint and their immigration status or the visa. They don't have to leave the UAE. They can stay in the UAE and continue living as they are and look for other opportunities or set up or invest in the UAE. So it is definitely a move towards that. The implementation, what we are still looking at with this announcement is, it's not announced when is it all being properly rolled out, whether we talk about the green visas, whether we talk about the reduction in the thresholds, the job seeker visa, the duration of the job seeker visa, how long will it going to be. So those are still, again, this announcement just came out last night, as you mentioned. So more details to come on that, but it is definitely moving towards it. And it is something that is needed from a UAE standpoint, where we are. People are looking to have plan their future here, and in that sense, if they have it on their own profile, it gives you a bit more security to plan your future with your families and relatives. And I think it is important given where UAE is, to give that security to people to plan their future. These will all go a very long way, and it will move. It's just that I think it will take some time for all of this to be properly implemented in the system, where people can start seeing and getting these visas, and the route to those visas in terms of the actual processing of it, we'll have to see whether it's through an online portal system or it's a manual application. I'm guessing it's through an online portal because people outside needs to apply as well. So those are the details that we're still waiting on, and that will trickle through. But it was definitely going to happen.
Haider Hussain, partner at Fragomen, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure.
So as Haider Hussain just said just there will be a lot of detail coming through the next few days. I find it's a very interesting time in the region to be making continued reforms here, because you have sort of the resolution of some of the overhanging issues in the region, like the war in Yemen, look like that may happen, give stability. Elsewhere, there is instability on the other end, which makes the UAE look like an even better destination for some people. And so if you're reforming something as important as the immigration system constantly and creating more options, and as you said, Kelsey, more pathways, then we could see a real influx of skilled, talented people staying here for quite a while.
Yeah, I'm excited about who I can meet out here in this more sort of diverse world that the UAE feels like they're creating. I am really kind of excited when we think about, as you said, diverse pathways. It creates a more vibrant society when you have different professions, different family types, different ways of living here. We're not all just sort of a monolith expat culture. It becomes a lot more dynamic.
Kelsey Warner, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All that remains to thank our production team and you all for listening. Do join us again next time.